Hey, it's Lowry Smith of the Commander Smiths here with Switcheroo, working with Alela, Artful Provocateur right now. Having some audio visual recording issues. This is my third shot at it, so hopefully it works. But all right, I just did Ishin. It probably didn't get recorded. Doesn't seem like it. But either way, we do a podcast live streamed Monday nights. You can donate to make us take shots of Malort, which is an incredibly bitter drink. And I highly suggest you don't buy it for yourself ever. And and so yeah, that's what I would say. We also do a ton of um content here on YouTube. We're over on TikTok. We're kind of on Twitter. That's where we post, but we don't post our thoughts. That's where we have the Discord and our Patreon involved. We have a really nice community. I am biased in that, but that's a bunch of cool people. And yeah, so I am live streaming this. If things go wrong, awry, I'm sorry. And if you're not watching this live, I suggest watching it in like one and a half speed. I'm not the fastest talker. You're not going to miss anything and you're going to get finished a lot quicker. So right now, Switcheroo is a different concept than it is in the past. Basically, I have the cards picked out. I know where I want them to go for the most part, at least half of them. And the others, I didn't really know how to fit it in. So I'm just going to go through one last time and see if I like it. You'll get to see how the deck looks and then I'll move on. I have Alela right now. I also have Sevinne the Chronoclasm, and I have Kestia the something or other, but that's an aura deck, Bant aura deck. So that's what I'm going to do. Hopefully, this lasts longer than 5 minutes. So let's go with that. This is Alela. It leans into artifacts on this one, but whenever you cast an artifact or enchantment, create a 1/1 blue fairy. Flying creatures you control have get +1/+0, and it's pretty awesome because it has flying, death touch, and lifelink. So bases of the deck here. All right, it's gonna. I'm gonna switch in Carnival of Souls, because whenever a creature comes into play, which is could be your tokens, you lose a life and put a black in your mana pool. That allows you to just kind of start churning through your deck pretty well. And then Sword of the Animist is it's good. It's good on a flyer, but just looking to maybe churn the deck out a little bit more. Let's see here. So I think that could be an all right split. It's a little bit less costing for mana. I'm still running mana, running that pretty quick. I think that's a decent switch back and forth. All right, second one is Refined Scheming Seer. Um, I have a lot of flyers. A lot of creatures can become, come out there. And then you're drawing and discarding, pumping something. It should be pretty cool. And when I made this deck, we were playing a lot more in person. Now we're playing, we can play video and over the internet. So I'm not a big fan of stealing stuff. And so this was just kind of an easy, it's nice card advantage. Rafine should be as well, or at least card selection. And so we'll do a nice easy switch that way. Um, let's see here. Refine's a pretty sweet card. I do have that as a commander as well. So, all right. What I have been doing is putting Rumor Gatherer into a lot of my decks and switching out Mentor the Meek. It's a pretty easy swap. I just like the free draw instead of having to pay the one. Allows me to be just a bit more aggressive. Scrying is pretty solid in here as well. I don't have any problem with that. So that's been a pretty easy split for me. Um, all right. Looking to put Rise and Shine, like I said, it's an artifact kind of focused themed deck. And so this allows for a bit of a end game. Rise and Shine turns all of your non-artifact creatures into 4/4 creatures that can attack for overload. Well worth waiting for that. Marionette Master. I have a Will and Mike deck, which is much more focused on this. And so since I don't want that kind of overlap in my decks, I'll take it out of here and I'll add in an artifacts endgame. And so that should be a nice switch. It allows my decks to feel different and what's going on. All right. Another one, crawl space. I don't necessarily really care about people attacking me or not in this deck. And so I'm deciding to put in access denied. It creates a bunch of 1/1 flying Thopters. And so there are two ones in this. It gives me a little bit of protection. 5 mana is a lot for this deck because normally I'm kind of playing artifacts and tapping out and stuff like that. But could be a pretty solid upside. So I'm happy with that. Crawl space is pretty cool, but it could go somewhere else too. I have plenty of decks that don't want to be attacked. All right, access denied. Can go in there. You can see how quick this is kind of moving through. All right. Black Blade Reforged is a pretty sweet thing. What is the end game? Never made it to that. It's the last Avengers movie. It's really good. You should go see that, Mr. Hockey. All right, Black Blade Reforged is something that just makes Alela a beast. And I was just thinking that it's a little bit expensive. Maybe there's something a little bit smaller. Radiant Grace is an aura, so it is an enchantment, but gives +1/+0 vigilance. And so Alela turns into a 3/3, but also when a vigilance as well. But when it dies, you can curse a player and their creatures enter the battlefield tapped, which is pretty sweet for 1 mana. So it does a little bit more, a little bit cheaper, and if it does go away, it still has some value. And it's just something that I want to try out. I think it's kind of a really cool, interesting card. Let's see here. All right. So those are the ones that I know that I wanted to put in. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Not too bad. Now the cards that I want to try and fit in, I'll go through those pretty quick too. But all right, let's see what we have here. Moon Snare prototype. It's an artifact, and then it gives me a bit of ramp in here. I think that could be nice, but I don't know where it goes. Inspiring Overseer is a flyer that'll ETB and draw me a card, but it's not an artifact or an enchantment, so kind of hard. Soul Guy Lantern is nice draw. It would trigger a Layla. It's also some graveyard hate, which I'm pretty sure I'm lacking in here. All right. All right. Thanks, Adam. Thanks for checking all that out. All right. So graveyard hate, pretty cool. Um, Brilliant Restoration is here just to have a nice, like, bring everything back. Because when you're like artifact or enchantment themed, one wrath can just end you more than other people. So that's something that you want to keep an eye on. And Skeleton Shard is pay a black, tap, bring an artifact creature back into your hand. We'll see. I don't think that one's actually going to fit. I don't think that even has a chance. All right, let's go through the rest of the deck. Archetype of Courage. So what the nice thing is this can turn all of your fairy 2/1 fairy tokens into first strike. They can just sit back and block everything. Together, they're going to kill your stuff. Uh, and Also triggers being an enchantment and allows Alela to be pretty aggressive. So I like that in here. Emery allows me to recast artifacts, which again I like that. Sai is getting me flyers whenever I cast artifact spells, so it works pretty well on here. Spell Stutter Sprite is a nice counter spell that becomes more and more powerful the more tokens that you have. We are Commander Smith. But also a flyer, so it's a 2/1 with a Layla out. Pretty cool. Crashing Drawbridge gives all of my creatures haste, along with being an artifact. It's an awesome card. I use it in a ton of decks. Spellskite, artifact protection, does great job. Sephara is also flying indestructibility protection. I suggest that for this deck. Hmm. Grazalak is pretty sweet. So since this is a token deck, it does and it can go wide. The question ends up being like you still, being able to draw multiple cards per turn is pretty sweet. And also protecting a Layla if somebody does something tricky during an attack or pick up some utility creatures. It's Grazalax is a pretty sweet card. Baleful Strix, artifact, draws me the card. So like This is just 100 times better than Inspiring Overseer, right? So how does the Overseer fit in here? Gonna be a bit hard. Shimmer Dragon is draw. It's a big draw, hexproof, flying. Vidalcan Archmage gets me a lot of draw. As for Sentinel is an artifact creature, pretty sweet. Ornithopter Paradise, also like I basically put this in any non-greed deck. It's well worth it. Starheim Courser reduces artifacts and enchantment cost, which is sweet. Foundry Inspector also reduces the cost of artifacts. That's probably worth it. I think in this deck I'd rather have cost reduction rather than something that just creates a mana. Grand Architect, tap blue creatures, which are the fairies for 2 mana for artifacts. It's pretty bamf. Urza, Lord High Artificer, is also here for ramp, and if you get to that point, you can start using it as like kind of card advantage with the 5. Solemn, great in this deck. Ethereum Sculptors, an artifact and also reducing the cost. Mycosynth Lattice allows for some huge pumps in this deck, and also some a little control. Sword of the Meek and Thopter Foundry gets you a lot of mana. It actually goes infinite creatures, but they're all tipping with the Grand Architect and maybe Urza as well. So pretty good. It's going to get you a huge army. All right, I am falling behind. All right, did you know Ristic Study is good blue? Have you? No. Okay. All right. Yeah. Ristic Study's good, man. You're such a yeah. So this is where kind of some of the nice pumps come into play with Mycosynth Lattice. So I'll bring up Lattice like some of the stuff that works with it. But Nettle says it basically gives +1/+1 for each permanent you control, which is sweet. Sword of Vengeance turns Alela into, it's a 4/3 first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, death touch, flying, lifelink. It makes it unstoppable. It's pretty sweet. Cranial Plating gets that buff for all the artifacts from Lattice as well. Lean and Sun Standard is in there because then I can pay 2 and give all of um, my tokens +1/+1. So it's a nice like buff temporarily. That could be cuttable, but maybe not for anything here. Yeah, probably not anything there. All right. On to the second half of this. All right. Eldrazi Monument. I talked about this in Ishin, but token decks should almost run Eldrazi Monument. Flying, indestructible. You're able to just pay that cost. It's going to be hard to remove it. It's a great card. Boots is great for protection. Skull Clamp for drawing. Idol of Oblivion for drawing. You're going to trigger that a lot. By Nathasa is good for drawing, like Razzleax. Top is great. Inspiring Statuary is going to get you a lot of ramp mana as well. Talisman, Soul Ring, Bauble, Mox Opal, Talisman, Signet. Yep. So that whole package, that's great in there. So Tezzeret, Agent of Bolas, is going to get some burn in there for all the artifacts. I think it's pretty solid in there. Same thing with Master of the Bridge. They're both pretty good in here. I like them. Card advantage along with mana ramp. Both are burning. They're doing some good work here. Chroma's Will is going to get some. The games are going to end pretty quick that way, along with Heliod's Intervention is going to be some solid removal. Torment of Hailfire. You can ramp a lot in this with like Urza and the Inspiring Statuary. I don't know if I need Torment in here. None of these could take its place, but this is something that I'd probably consider taking out as well. I don't have Torment in any other decks, but it's probably worth. Mirror Maid copies a ton of good value cards. Copy Artifacts also is going to copy a bunch of good cards. Anointed Procession is doubling the amount of tokens. I like that. All that glitters gets the +1/+1 from the lattice. That's pretty good together. Fanatical Devotion is sacrifice one of your fairy tokens to protect Alela. It's pretty good as well. Re- Reconnaissance allows you to be aggressive. I like it in this deck. Saves anything else. Also triggers Alela. Aura of Silence is great removal. Hmm. That's it, huh? All right. I think it's good. It slows down the game. I like it because it makes everybody pay 2 more for artifacts and enchantments. 3 for a soul ring. Nobody's happy about that, but they're willing to do it. So it's good. I like it. I like it as removal. Works here. Consulate Crackdown is going to remove all permanents if you have Lattice in play. It's pretty sweet that way. Reconnaissance Mission just draws you cards for each creature that deals damage. Same thing with Coastal Piracy and Smothering Tithe. Okay, well, I think I proved I don't really like Skeleton Shard, Inspiring Overseer either, and probably not Moon Snare Prototype. I still like those two. Being able to like recast that from the yard and being able to just come back from a board wipe is pretty sweet. Um, all right, let's quick just shuffle this up. I don't know where either of those would really fit. I kind of, I don't think it's really a Torment of Hailfire thing where I can put or the Leonin Sun Standard. Um, Sun Standard could probably get cut for Soul Guy Lantern, but I think it's just so much more powerful. I only have one thing in here right now, like Emery, to bring back Soul Guy Lantern, but that's good. That's good. Um, let's see here. Maybe I'm being weird, and maybe this is just the better choice. Could be. Because I don't really need the Radiant Grace. Like Vigilance +1/+1, it'll trigger it. I like it. I want to try it. I want to try it, like I was saying. All right, Mirror Maid, Constant Crackdown. Maybe that's the one. That's not super good. Like I was saying. And I know I just put it in there, but I was saying I'm more playing artifacts on my turn. It might not be the best fit. I don't even remember what I took it out for. Oh, there we go. Let's see here. Maybe the Marionette Master? Is that what I did? Probably. Yeah, I think I'm willing to cut that for one of these. I like the first strike. I like the draw, doubling. Yeah. Nettle Cyst, copy, Chroma's Will, Inspiring Statuary, Raffine. Yeah, that should be good. Also, actually, if I have more Raffine in there, I'm more likely to have cards to bring back from the Brilliant Restoration as well. So I should think about that a little bit. Rise and Shine is good. Foundry Inspection, yeah. Lattice, Skull Clamp. I like this one. I have enough enchantments in here. Artifact and enchantments in your graveyard to the battlefield. Yeah, I dig that. Eldrazi Monument, Sephara, Reconnaissance. All right. So maybe, like I was saying, I might be willing to cut that, even though it's a nice game ender. It's not really on theme. It's not really artifact. It's not an enchantment. It's not helping the tokens that are created. This at least brings stuff back from a board wipe. I'm also like anything that I draw or discard or mill. I think that can be a huge card. So probably where we're at. Crashing Drawbridge, Cranial Plating, Skull Clamp. Let's see here. Sword of Vengeance, Leonin Sun Standard. I like that. Emery's great in here. I still like the Bidens, like the dealing damage to players. To donate for you to get sleeves that are not shriveled from 1999. These aren't bad. These aren't bad. Are you mad about up here? That's fine. They're not 23 years old. They're about 12 years old. They're old. But yeah, no, I'm not going to. I'm way too cheap to get new ones until they start falling apart. And even then, I'll hold on to them because you're going to get pissed at that Sevinne deck sleeves. They're awful. All right, Tithe makes sense. Baleful Strix, because the other thing is some of those treasures they're going to get real big from the Rise and Shine. So, Grazilax, that makes sense. Yep, 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 yep. I like that. I like that. And I wanted this. I think it's the only Esper deck that I really have. I guess that could fit. Nah, I like this. I like that there. Could fit and Refine. I have Refine as well. So, bada bing, bada boom. Yeah, I like that actually. So we'll do that. All right. Didn't quite get access denied in there. Soul Guy Lantern. Having a little bit of yard hate is good, but also being able to just draw off of it is good. And that is Alela. Where are we at? 20 minutes? Not too bad. Torment to Hailfire. I think that just works. That's a little bit more synergy. I like that. I must have. All right. I don't think I really want to add anything. Like I don't feel bad about taking anything like this out. All feels pretty good. All right. Happy with that. Moving on. All right. Let's do Sevinne now. Let's see here. All right, this is kind of like an Aikido deck where I'm kind of doing damage wraths along with playing from the graveyard. I have a handful of cards that I think will work, and then we'll go through. All right, Sevinne, the Chronoclasm. Yeah. Oh yeah. Whoop. Sorry. These are pretty rough on the sleeves here. I could probably get rid of them. All right, so this is 2 blue, red, white, 2/2. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to Sevinne the Chronoclasm, which is where the damage wraths come into play. But whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery spell from your graveyard each turn, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. So, also trying to play from the graveyard a little bit more. Um, we'll just kind of go over what it is. Strike it Rich is probably pretty bad, but the flashback makes it palatable and more of a spell, so that helps some of the other cards in the deck that are around. So we'll go with that. We'll get a treasure token out of it. I have some treasure token stuff going on, so that'll kind of work. All right. I've gotten one game in with it, and I was thinking that if I had more Aikido cards, so like Log Maniac here or Boros Reckoner, just dealing more damage back, it'll slow people down a little bit. So I'm just trying to add this one in. There's one other knight from one of the Ravnica sets that does the same thing. And that's just a little bit too much mana. Like it's 2 red, 2 white to have it come out. So we'll avoid that. All right. Swans of Bryn Goal. It's a great card, but also I'm very wary about having my opponents draw cards because I might be forced to block with it. It'll always stick around after one of those damage wraths and draw me a ton of cards for sure. But gonna cut that and add in Agar. Let's see here, and I can read that once it's upright. The Freezing Flame, but it's 3/3. Whenever a creature or planeswalker an opponent controls is dealt excess damage, if a giant wizard or spell you control dealt damage to it this turn, draw a card. So these damage wraths are going to draw me a lot of cards. And I'm not going to feel bad about it. So it works there for me. All right. Lear, Disciple of the Drowned. I love this card. I think it's really, really good. But in a flashback deck, it's not doing me nearly as much work. And I was thinking that Jeskai Ascendancy is going to allow me to draw, discard, kind of pump my team a little bit after a Wrath, and giving indestructibility gives me a little bit more oomph. So gonna go with that route. I think that'll be pretty solid because again, drawing and discarding at a consistent basis whenever I'm casting another spell lets me dig pretty far. I like it. All right, gonna cut Solemn Simulacrum and gonna put in Wizards of Thay, 4 mana for 3/3. So same CMC, a little bit more power. It reduces the cost of spells. I can cast my sorceries um as instants, and also it has myriad, so I can reduce the cost of spells by like 3 during my combat. So I think that's doing a lot there. I'm pretty happy with that. I think that'll work. It's not a land. A land into play is pretty sweet. Um and the drawing, but let's try Wizards of Thay. It's a spell slinging deck. I have Solemn and everything, so it makes a ton of sense to give it a try. All right. Next one, Structural Assault. I think this is a pretty good card, especially right now with how many treasures and clues and foods are hanging around. Um, the problem that I was thinking is conceptually, let's go with like this card doesn't do any, it's a dead card in hand if there's not many artifacts out there. Like, and I want big damage being dealt to my creatures so that they can fling it over at somebody else. And so I'd probably, and it also destroys all artifacts, which is not something that I always want to have happen either because I'm into the like artifact ramp that's needed in a non-green deck. And so I'm going to go with Subterranean Tremors. I'm going to be able to kind of choose how things are dealt damage a little bit more, but it deals X damage to each creature without flying. If X is 4 or more, destroy all artifacts. So basically the same thing. It's destroying all artifacts at 5 mana. And this would be dealing 4 damage no matter what. And this could be doing a lot more, right? But if you go 8 or more, then you get to create an 8/8 lizard, which is a little bit more oomph in the deck. Um, Let's see here. Yeah, neither of them are dealing damage to players. I get a creature out of this, and this could potentially be a lot bigger, but it can also be a lot smaller. So the ceiling and the floor are a lot bigger than Subterranean Tremors. And so I'm going to go with Tremors just to have a little bit more control, I think. A little easier to maybe recast from the graveyard. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't know. That's it that I know of. So I like those. And then we're going to try and find a spot to fit Burning Vengeance real quick. And we'll move on that one. All right. Gideon Sacrifice redirects all damage to probably Sevinne, but also Mogmaniac. Really good. Flawless Maneuver, Indestructibility, which is nice for those damage wraths. Preordained is just draw. Ponders just draw. Faithless Looting is draw. I must be in an order here of some type. Bauble, Soul Ring, great. Curse of Opulence is that artifact stuff. Mana Crypt is needed, and it's a thicker deck than I'm used to playing. So having some really good mana ramp like Crypt is really good in here. Harmonic Prodigy is crazy in here because it doubles that trigger. Chain of Plasma is kind of combo-y, and since I took out Swans of Bryn Argol, I'm not sure. It only really works with one other card. This is cuttable, I think, and I'll probably get more work out of Burning Vengeance? Question mark. Let's see, because the copy part is also really nice with the mages, the dwarf, Stormkiln artists, and stuff like that. Snapcaster Mage is casting something from the graveyard. Greaves and Boots are protecting Sevinne or anything else. Boros Charm is there for the indestructibility. Think Twice is drawing from the yard. Sorcerer class is mana and draw. It's pretty sweet. Faithless looting or mending is looting. Medical idea is draw, lowering the cost of spells. Ramp, 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 ramp. All right, getting into the damage takers, something like that. Spiteful Sliver is going to redirect that damage. Same thing with Boros Rekner. They're pretty solid in there. They kind of scare people that are combat damaged or even from doing their own blasphemous act. Like Gift is good removal. Because it is nice. So they work kind of together. You can go and destroy an artifact or enchantment or land or whatever, give them a creature which reduces the cost for blasphemous act as well. So it almost helps you in that regard. Second half of the deck, Chaos Warp is again great, fantastic removal. Quasi Duplicate is great for copying those Boros Rekner creatures. Really good. I had 3 Spite Mirrors out in the last game that I had, and everybody's like, I don't want to attack you. And then they had to fly over the top. So it was pretty good. Gale is crazy good from playing cards from the graveyard. Highly suggest checking that out in your Spellslinger decks. Sevinne's Reclamation is great. Recursion, Pariah on Sevinne, it really slows the game out for everybody else. Shielded by Faith is indestructibility for Sevinne or one of the other ones. Secrets of the Dead is going to draw you cards when you're playing spells from the yard. That makes sense to me. Risk Factor is another draw from the yard. Electric Revelation, draw from the yard. Ill-Tempered Loner is Aikido cards. Same thing with Spite Mare. Chain Reaction is a good damage wrath. Pyrohemia is going to stick around forever because Sevinne's not going to die from it. So you can just unload with your red mana into it. It's cool. Sevinne being hard to remove is great with Worship, Light Mine, Field. If you make your creatures indestructible, they'll all take that damage. Sevinne's never going to take damage from it since it's prevented. So that works out. It's pretty cool here. Deep Analysis is draw from the yard. Archmage Emeritus is that Magecraft. Magecraft is crazy. It'll trigger off the copies. It's so good. Draw from the yard. Treasures for casting and copying spells. Visions of Ruin is removal, treasures, and flashback. Does everything. Keeper of the Cord is great in here just because you're going to fall behind in creature count. And so you'll be able to just kind of continue having blockers. And if you do fall behind in land, it'll help you with that. Fresh Taunters and Aikido, Stuffy Doll, yep. Fiendlash, same thing. Double Vision is to copy those spells. I think that's still the better card to cut. Body of Knowledge is the only card that Chain of Plasma really works with anymore. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. Aikido and Damage Wrath. Okay. So Body of Knowledge is whenever it's dealt damage, you draw that many cards. So it still works with the rest of the deck. Chain of Plasma, though, deals at 3 damage. You draw 3 cards, you discard one of those cards, and its power toughness will always roughly be there. Like you go as long as you can until it's about to die. And so you can draw a ton of cards off of that. But I think since it's the only card that really works together, I'd much rather be like 2 damage here, 2 damage there. I'm going to have a lot more action during the middle of the game. So Chain of Plasma gets cut, Burning Vengeance gets put in, and that's where we're at there. I'm happy with that. That wasn't too bad. Roughly 15 minutes. Kind of moving through there. Probably only got about 15 more minutes on this, and that would be good. Under an hour. That's crazy. All right. Happy with that. Is there anything else that I may want to that I cut that might want to go back in later? Structural Assault might not be bad. Swans. Probably. Yeah. Ugh. Let's just be happy with those cuts. I think I'm happy. Structural Assault has a shot to go in. All right. We'll keep that on the side. That has a potential to go in. All right. Last deck. Let's go with Kestia. This is an Aura deck and should do Aura stuff. The concept here is wanted to potentially put that in there. Let's see where the land is. May or may not go in. That was one that I kind of ran into a little bit later. Let's see here. Oop. And that's the deck. I have a lot that I don't know if I can fit in or not, but Kestia. All right, let's talk about that a wee bit, huh? All right. So Kestia is Bestow. It's a 4/4 for 4, but enchanted creature gets +4/+4. And whenever an enchanted creature or enchantment creature Whenever an enchanted creature or enchantment creature you control attacks, draw a card. So it's pretty cool with drawing. You want to kind of suit up your creatures, and then shit happens. You can be drawing, a bunch of cards off of it, and it's pretty sweet. Um, First card that I want to switch in is Kodama of the West Tree. All of these aura creatured are modified. And so if they deal combat damage to a player, you get to search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tap, then shuffle. It has reach, and that's a big game here. I think that's pretty cool. And I'm going to take out Zatalpa. Reason being is I wanted my indestructible creatures to be much smaller and hitting the battlefield a lot more. Not saying that this is what's happening here, but my auras aren't going to be being put on Zatalpa, right? So we will um try and get a little bit more ramp on there. All right. Second thing here is thinking about gonna put in Dryad of the Elysian Grove. Allows me to play more lands per turn. It allows me to fix my mana. But the big thing is just having an enchantment creature for Kestia to trigger. And similar thing that Druid class is doing. They're both enchantments. There's Enchantress cards in here. This allows me to gain a little bit life, but play more lands. That's kind of what Dryad's doing, but in that realm. So we'll do that switch pretty easy, I think, and that should help and move stuff forward as well. All right, and then another thing is out of time is solid removal. Phases out everybody's commanders. It can be brutal. I prefer not to because as things phase out, it'll also actually take my auras, and I don't really want to do that. I'd rather protect my guys. So I'm going to do that with Guardian of Faith, which is something that I talked about in Ishin, which is not going to be around, but saving tokens, saving auras, being able to save your stuff from a wrath is really good. So I'm not going to worry about other people nearly as much as I want to just protect my stuff. And I think that'll work quite well because blinking doesn't really work with auras. You don't want to do that. So next thing is reducing the curve of the deck. But Bruna, whenever it attacks, you get to bring all auras back attached to it. It'll be huge if there's ever a wrath, and that's pretty big. Now, Mantle the Ancients is one less, five mana, but enchant creature you control. Whenever it enters the battlefield, return any number of target auras and or equipment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield attached to that creature. And then enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each aura or equipment attached to it. So it's getting all those bonuses. Also gets really big. It's easier to cast a little bit. I think Bruna still has a place in here as well, but I have the other, like the double striking one as well. So I'm not as keen on that. Like I think I just want to try it here. Bruna or the other one might just work better elsewhere. Oh, that's actually a really good point. The equipment part is kind of nice. Let's keep Bruna and let's go find that angel, that other angel. You're getting a quick look here. Oh, I do have that. All right. Because I think that's auras and there we go. Heavenly Blade Master. Enters battlefield. You may attach any number of auras and equipment you control to it. Other creatures you control Okay, so this is yeah, yeah. Okay, let's cut Heavenly Blade Master because I want more recursion from the graveyard, and this allows that, and I still get to keep Bruno. That's sweet. Okay, cards from your graveyard to the battlefield attached to enchanted creature, and it gets huge. Yep, I dig that. All right. Next one is Holy Mantle. +2/+2 has protection from creatures, so it makes your stuff unblockable. But I kind of have a lot of auras that get like just go over the top, not worried about the blocking because the creatures are already, 8/8s, 10/10s. So I'd much rather have my indestructible huge things have vigilance. And then also where he talks about it when it comes into play taps, or it curses somebody and their creatures come into play tap. But I think it works a lot better here. So we'll work with that. All right. This is one that I was questioning. This is the last one that I know of that I can do, but this one's also hard. Okay. So Brave the Sands, creatures you control have vigilance. Each creature you control can block an additional creature. So I don't get a ton of creatures, but I also need to be able to block. And vigilance is really nice. And the cheapness of this is really nice. Heliod, God of the Sun, also an enchantment. They're both enchantments, right? So it's going to work with the Enchantress stuff. It's 4 mana, giving an vigilance, which similar, more expensive, can be its own creature, which is an enchantment. But the thing is it makes 2/1 white enchantment creatures, and that would trigger Enchantress cards. Not all of them, but most of them. And so this is a back and forth of like, basically, this can do a lot. I think we do the switch, but I'm gonna regret taking Heliod out, if that makes sense. I like I like that part of just, like, running out of gas. Maybe that doesn't count. Maybe that doesn't matter. I like that. Alright, let's go that route. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards in. Alright, let's go about the cards that I was thinking about adding. There's a lot in this one, so this is the question mark. I don't know. Let's see if we can get anything here. So, going through the cards, Elemental Resonance. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, all mana equal to enchanted permanence mana cost to add it to your mana pool. So you're able to use that. It's pretty cool ramp. I do have a lot of like indestructible, hard to kill creatures, but they're not very big, and so we'll see. Pursuit of Knowledge. Skip drawing a card, put a study counter on it, remove 3 study counters, sacrifice it, draw 7 cards. It's an enchantment. You can do that, 4 mana, draw 7 seems pretty good, right? It's just a little expensive. Omen of the Sea is basically like a sorcery and but an enchantment, so it'll trigger other cards. But ETB, scry 2, draw a card, sacrifice it, scry 2, not too bad. Weaver of Harmony, which is other enchantment creatures you control get +1/+1, which there isn't a lot here, honestly. And then you can copy target activated or triggered ability, which would be the draw ability, but only one. So I don't know how excited I am about that. I don't know if it has a spot. Core Spirit Dancer will get +2/+2 for each aura attached to it, and then you draw a card for each aura spell you cast. The problem is it can't really protect itself, and I just went big. Light Pause, Emperor's Voice. I cast an aura. I can go find a smaller aura, attach it to that. Again, it doesn't really protect itself, which is what this deck is doing. Cloud Steel Kieran. There for the equip 5, and then if it's equipped, you can't lose the game, and they can't win the game. I think that's huge. I think that's pretty cool. And it's a slower deck anyway. I'm happy about that. Thinking about that. Archetype of Endurance. It's an enchantment creature. Everything gets hexproof. They lose hexproof. Um, it's just 8. It's a lot. That's my problem with it. And then Holy Avenger. equipment, double strike, and then whenever that creature deals combat damage, any combat damage to a player, creature, whatever, you may put an aura card from your hand on the battlefield attached to it. So being able to cheat out creatures is pretty sweet, or even blocking is pretty huge. So I have a lot of support. Probably the ones that I want to be able to push is probably Omen of the Sea, Cloud, Steel Kirin, and everything else I'm probably pretty wishy-washy on. Right. All right, let's go through half the deck here. All right. Caliph, Beloved of the Sea, but it makes all of your creatures and enchantments you control have spells your opponents cast that target a permanent cost 1 more to cast. So it gives them all ward 1 creatures and enchantments. So I like that part. It's a nice protection. It's also an enchantment creature. It can be big. It comes down cheap. This is one that has always been kind of like iffy. This is a